Mark one down for the SEC over the Big Ten. Mark Rogers TV with instant analysis of Tennessee's 38-24 win over Nebraska. Derek Barnett off the edge for the Vols the entire game. Yes, it took him forever to the final minute of play to get that elusive sack record, that sack that passed Reggie White. But sacks are one thing. Quarterback hurries, getting pressure on the quarterback, forcing the issue, getting so much attention that you allow teammates to get to the quarterback, that's a whole other story. And Derek Barnett was doing all those things for the entire game. So he comes off the edge and gets that elusive sack, as we mentioned at the end, but he was pressuring Riker Fife the entire day and was a major factor in the game. Offensively for the Vols, Josh Dobbs, Alvin Kamara, John Kelly, too many playmakers all over the place. Josh Malone, Josh Smith. Nebraska missing a number of guys, as Tennessee was as well. They've had injuries throughout the season, especially on defense, but they got healthy along the offensive line between the last game against Vandy and this game, and that proved costly for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Tommy Armstrong, unfortunately, couldn't make his last collegiate start. He's been the Nebraska starter for basically 4 years. 90 career touchdowns, 14-8 TD interception ratio this year. He had 8 rushing touchdowns. He's been an all-purpose quarterback with almost 11,000 yards career. He's firmly planted in the record books there at Nebraska. His career's been spotty, though, in regards to turnovers, interceptions, and inaccurate passing. He was just 51% this year. So did his loss hurt Nebraska? Well, the conventional thinking would be that it did. The line moved from 3 when the bowl game was announced all the way up to 9.5. But Riker Fife played pretty well. Not necessarily to start. He wasn't given much support, but he got into a rhythm and made some plays in the second half. Also costly for the Cornhuskers. They missed their leading receiver, Jordan Westerkamp. Caught just 38 passes this year, but a career with 167 receptions, 18 touchdowns. He is in the top 5 in receptions all time at Nebraska as well. Nathan Gary, senior starter at safety for the past 3 years, 12 career interceptions, been in the top 3 on the team in tackles for the past 3 years. He was suspended for the game. So Nebraska hurting coming into the game, and even Gary's replacement, Antonio Reed, had to leave the game in the second quarter, and he was replaced by Aaron Williams. Josh Dobbs owned the game. It was his game, and this is what he can do, especially against defenses that aren't equipped with enough athletes to keep up with him. So it was mentioned throughout the game, and it was obvious to see that Nebraska could have contained Dobbs had they taken better angles, held leverage on the outside, and at least forced him inside to get minimal gains rather than the big breaking plays that he got. Josh Dobbs played an exceptional game, had 3 rushing touchdowns on the day. And at one point, it was pretty obvious early in the game that Nebraska would have to make special plays, meaning forced fumbles, interceptions, those kind of plays to change the momentum of the game, special teams plays to hang with Tennessee. And they generally didn't do that, although it was still a game with about 6 to 7 minutes left to play, because out of the gate, Tennessee had 244 yards of total offense to 40 for Nebraska. Riker Fife took some big shots downfield, and he connected on them, and that's what kept the Huskers in the game. One to Sethan Carter, bomb touchdown to Brandon Riley, who made a couple remarkable catches that made it 14-7 at that point after the Vols went up 14-0 with Josh Dobbs taking over the game. Alvin Kamara had not a big game, 77 total yards, but converted some plays with his legs in the passing game. One of note on 3rd and 9 when he should have been wrapped up, but they let him slip through, and Dobbs scored with 9 seconds left in the first half. So that was really hurting the Huskers, getting back by 2 scores when they could have closed out the half, and it held them to a field goal. But Dobbs scores with 9 seconds to play in the first half, and it's 21-7, and the total yardage at halftime, 308 to 118. And Nebraska just couldn't keep up. So what amazes me about this Nebraska program is that transitioning from the Big 12 6 years ago, into the Big 10, they had the best defense in the Big 12 at that point. Look at the conference championship game against Colt McCoy and that prolific offense, 13-12. They almost won another Big 12 championship against Oklahoma, and then suddenly they hit the Big 10 and they don't recruit defensive players or very spotty defensive play. Nebraska hit on 2 big plays to start the second half. Then DeMornay Pearson-L, who I had expected over the last couple of years to be a bigger factor in the offense, he fumbles. Malik Foreman forced the fumble and recovered it. But Nebraska made a huge 4th and 1 stand at the 35. More Dobbs and Kamara. Riley with a corner touchdown. Riker Fife made a beautiful pass to the corner to hit Riley with the touchdown to make it 24-14 and keep them in the game. Fife's numbers weren't great, 17 of 36, but he was harassed the entire day, and 17 completes for 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions for Riker Fife. Tommy Armstrong couldn't say that too often in his career. Dobbs comes back running and passing, scores the touchdown, 31-14. And then the play that Nebraska needed, Cam Sutton fumbles on the kickoff return. JoJo Doman with a forced fumble. Neb Mohammed Berry recovers for Nebraska. They're at they get it with Fife running it in 31-24, but Josh Malone breaks the top off the defense for the 59-yard bomb, and there you have it. And that's pretty much the nutshell, is that Tennessee had too many playmakers on offense, especially, and then Derek Barnett and some of his cohorts defensively along the front, and they stayed 1-2 scores ahead of Nebraska, and they win it at 38-24. Vols finished 9-4. Big non-conference game next year against Georgia Tech, the opener September 4th. Wish I had seen a better game for the Vols in checking out next year's schedule. Nebraska 9-4 this year, coming off 6-7 in Mike Riley's inaugural season in Lincoln. I don't know that they played better. If you look at the results of the games, obviously they won 3 more games, but last year they basically found ways to lose in the last 30 seconds of the games. I don't know that they played better. We're a better team this year, but the results certainly better at 9-4, something Nebraska fans have lived with now for a decade. 9-4. Oregon, the big game on the road for the Huskers in 2017. That's our take on the Music City Bowl. Need to hear from you now on Mark Rogers TV.